Animal Magnetism, exploring animal care for creatures great and small, conservation and preservation in today's world. Find out what a single voice can do to make a difference in the lives of animals. Animal Magnetism with Carolyn Hennessy starts right now on UBN Radio.
Yay! Oh, yay. First of all, happy Easter, everybody. Everybody who's going to watch this tonight and then play it in the archives, you will know that we shot this on Easter. So happy Easter to everybody. I hope everybody gets a wonderful, wonderful Easter basket. Welcome to Animal Magnetism. I am your host, Carolyn Hennessy. And once again, Tony, we've got to change that intro because it's far, far, far from a single voice. I might be the loudest voice because I can yell, but it's this whole movement is not comprised of a single voice. It's many, many voices, and we have an extraordinary voice on with us today. But as always, we are joined today by my producer, co-host, as I say, the extension of myself, who just happens to live up close to Seattle. Andrea Compton, good morning, my dear.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you, my love, my darling, darling girl. And, of course, we have the man who started it all. The catalyst for change in me. My personal alpha and omega, my personal hero, probably my biggest hero ever, Dr. Gray Stafford. Thank you for being with us.
It's always a pleasure to talk with you, Carolyn. You are such an advocate. I could not imagine how far you would go when we first talked.
You really couldn't, could you? You really couldn't because I'm sure that you thought I was just another of those batshit crazy Hollywood types who
You know I didn't.
Really?
And you know why I didn't?
Why?
Because you had a way of conversing with your fan base through your web pages and various routes that existed back then that was a little more thoughtful. It wasn't just a canned response. And when people challenged you on an idea, you didn't dismiss them out of hand. You sought more information. And that's really been one of your superpowers over the years.
Well, it's true. Although on Facebook now, if anybody challenges me, I block them.
Well, that's true.
Because
life's too short.
it's my personal fiefdom. It's my little kingdom, and now it's like because I know that the ideas that I put out are right. So if you challenge me, go away. It's not quite that bad. It's not quite that bad, and certainly not in actual personal discussion. But it's like, okay, thanks to Gray, and discussion with others, you simply you have a factual sense, a fact-based opinion about what is right and what is wrong to do. I mean, there's a lot of gray with regard to animal advocacy, but there's a lot of black and white. And so somebody challenges me on something that's black and white, and they're gone. Okay, and now we have a wonderful author, and I don't think I've ever had somebody who's written like a fictional book certainly not a fictional novel for adults on the show to talk about why she chose these particular subjects. But Paula Munier, forgive me. She actually told me how to do it, and of course I forgot. Paula Munier, who is now residing in New England but used to work for Disney, has written this. And it's not her first. This wonderful book. It's called A Borrowing of Bones, and we're going to get into why she chose that title in a moment. But in addition to being a thriller, suspense, murder, a little bit of violence, theft, a little bit of a sparked romance, we've got the two leads. But also, we've got these two wonderful dogs that they each, in their own way, have adopted. And they are working dogs, and they are integral to solving the mystery and helping to solve the mystery that is laid out in this book. It's wonderful. Paula, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a joy to be here.
Let me just read to my audience just a little bit about you. Author of the best-selling Plot Perfect: The Writer's Guide to Beginnings. And oh, as an author, can I tell you, I mean, you know how difficult it is sometimes to just put those first words onto the page. Writing with Quiet Hands. I love that. And Fixing Freddie, a true story of a boy, a mom, and a very, very bad beagle. Dogs, I think, are just kind of a major driving influence in your life, I can tell. She was inspired to write A Borrowing of Bones by the hero working dogs that she met through Mission Canine Rescue, her own Newfoundland Retriever mixed rescue, Bear, and a lifelong passion for crime fiction. She lives in New England with her family, Bear, Freddie, and a Torby tabby named Ursula. The first thing, by the way, that I'm thinking is this would make a wonderful film. So I hope you're being courted.
Me too.
Yeah, yeah. Because while I cannot play Mercy Carr and Troy Warner, just fabulous names. It starts out with Troy Warner, who is a game warden in Vermont, and Mercy Carr, who is former military. She has lost her fiancé, Martinez. I think that's the only name we know him by, but Martinez, who is a sergeant. And Martinez had a working dog named Elvis. And when Martinez passed in action, he basically left Elvis with Mercy, his fiancé. And so she has now retired from the service. She's come back to a wonderful cabin in Vermont where she is surrounded by her wonderful grandmother named Patience and all of these terrific characters in this book. And so she's got this wonderful working dog she's suffering PTSD, and so is he. He is also suffering, and she meets Troy Warner, who she's had a crush on since high school, and his working dog, Susie Bear, who's just the best thing since sliced bread, as far as I'm concerned. And together, the two of them discover and then solve this rather intense crime drama. So how did you come to write this?
Well, actually, I was writing The Writer's Guide to Beginnings. And I had several fabulous beginnings from, our favorite novels as examples. But I needed one opening chapter that I could use as a sample exercise throughout the entire book and show the many iterations that your opening can go through. And I had just done this fundraiser for Mission Canine Rescue, which was hosted by Leo Maloney, the thriller writer, and met all these fabulous working dogs. I met soldiers and their bomb-sniffing dogs. I met game wardens and their illegally procured fish-smelling dogs. I met, law enforcement and their, drug-sniffing dogs. And I just fell in love with all the dogs. And having been raised in the military as an Army brat, I have a soft spot in my heart for military. And I fell in love with the dogs, especially one bomb-sniffing dog and his handler. And so when I sat down to write this chapter, I knew I could write whatever I wanted. I had to write my own because I couldn't use anyone else's. And I had just done this fundraiser, and I thought, I'll just throw in everything I love. So I threw in Vermont and a bomb-sniffing dog and the wilderness and a female veteran and a game warden and a dog, one based on the Belgian Malinois bomb-sniffing dog that I met at the fundraiser, and one based on our own rescue, Bear, who's a Newfoundland Retriever mix. And I threw in everything I loved, and my agent read the book, The Writer's Guide to Beginnings, and she said, this is a really good chapter. You should just keep writing.
Just go with it.
Yes, and I did, and I loved it. It was fun. I put everything I loved in it, which maybe is a good lesson for writers everywhere.
Put everything you love and put what you know. And it's interesting because you added so much to the cake batter, and it just made this beautiful, beautiful, wonderfully tasting cake. But there's everything, as you say, everything but the kitchen sink is in there with your personal knowledge, and of course as a writer that's what you have to use. That's all you can use. So let's talk about Susie Bear, because Susie Bear is this wonderful Newfoundland mix. And I get the impression that she's just this big shaggy carpet of a dog.
Yes, she is a big shaggy carpet of a dog. He's running around here somewhere.
Where's Bear? And because it's a he, you called her Susie Bear. I mean, because it's a she.
Right, because everyone wanted a boy, girl. So Mercy had Elvis, and in my mind, Elvis was a fierce male Belgian Malinois based on the dog I'd met at the fundraiser, and I couldn't change him. And I originally it was just Bear. And everybody said, oh, it should be boy, girl, boy, girl. I said, okay. And then I couldn't think of another name because this dog was Bear in my mind. Who's this big sort of galumpha, friendly, enthusiastic dog. And so I went through a million names. And finally I came across John Irving's The Hotel New Hampshire, which is one of my favorite novels. There's a character who lives in a bear costume, and her name is Susie Bear.
Yeah, yeah.
That's perfect. I'll just call her Susie Bear. So yes, Bear is the friendliest dog on earth, and so is Susie.
And so is Susie Bear. So let's talk about sort of how it manifested, this inspiration to write about working dogs, because Andrea and Gray and I are keenly aware of the oh my gosh, the American Humane. I've got this other conversation going in my head that I've been having for the last 2 hours. American Humane, the Hero Dog Awards, where they spotlight. They have so many people write in for all of these different categories: military working dogs, search and rescue dogs, therapy dogs, emerging hero dogs, and some of these stories are absolutely devastating. But when we are looking at the military working dogs or the police dogs, we are often alerted to the fact that these dogs are going through some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder. Gray, can you speak to dogs and PTSD?
I haven't had a lot of experience working with such dogs. I would imagine that given the way they're trained, it can be devastating when they suffer these effects. And so you have to go back almost to the beginning to reestablish trust, so that when they encounter situations, even familiar ones, they have a positive way to react, if you will, a successful way to react to situations that might trigger whatever trauma they've experienced. So I imagine it's based a lot on positive reinforcement and providing those reassuring consequences when they venture back out and explore the world and re-engage in everyday activities, particularly in the case of like our characters, where they come back from a war zone and now are back into a more normal lifestyle. I would imagine that's every bit a difficult transition for animals as it is for some of our soldiers.
It certainly is for Elvis, who is Mercy Carr's, our heroine's dog. But with regard to Susie Bear, you have a very interesting sort of past for Susie Bear, and that she was violently abused. And so let's talk about why you chose that particular past storyline for Susie Bear.
Well, honestly, it's Bear's storyline. We rescued Bear sight unseen from Alabama, and when we got him, we picked him up, and they said, "Be ready, because he's a big dog." And he came barreling down, and he's towards us, a dead stop. And 20 minutes later, we stopped for gas, and he cried when my husband got out of the car. He bonded immediately. He was such a lovely dog. And then we got him home and realized that he was missing all of his upper teeth, and that when we took him to the vet, they had let the roots in, and somewhere along the line, he had been probably hit in the head with a shovel. And so he had, a cracked, he had been broken along his muzzle, and those teeth were gone. And yet, loveliest dog ever, And so we knew that he had been abused badly. And we were so thrilled that we were able to give him a home, and that he was so cheerful and lovely, and didn't hold a grudge, even though he could have. And so that past I gave to Susie Bear, because I think there are so many dogs out there that need rescuing, and we have no idea what they've been through.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Horror story. Just a horror story. But these dogs, for instance, Troy, who owns Susie Bear in the novel, has trained her. So really, and I think Gray can attest to this, and Andrea and I, we've heard so many stories about the fact that you can start training a dog at any age and from any situation that they have come from. Gray, yes, this is true.
I firmly believe that, and I write about that in my book as well, that there are no lost causes. Now, that's not to say that every dog that is rescued belongs in any average family. That doesn't mean that every family member has the skills to meet the needs of severely abused dogs in every case. But I do believe that through positive reinforcement and some good training, that generally speaking, there are no lost causes.
Would you agree with that, Paula?
Absolutely. Bear was not a lost cause. We took Bear to obedience training, and you couldn't meet a lovelier dog, honestly. He's just the friendliest.
I want to see him. Where is he?
Dog.
Where is he? I want to see him.
Okay, come here, Bear. Come here. That a treat? He loves the word treat.
Treat. Oh, so do my dogs.
Treat. He knows that word. So now we'll see both of them. So here's here's Bear.
Oh.
How sweet is he? Look at that face. Oh, he's such a good boy. Such a love.
That is a beautiful, beautiful dog. And what a fortunate dog.
Yes, he's a lovely guy. There he is. Oh, good boy.
You cannot imagine someone being cruel to this dog. Just truly. No. And that's exactly what I pictured when you described Susie Bear. Okay, so let's talk about Elvis's PTSD. And Gray, as you mentioned, coming out of a war zone like this, because as Mercy is also suffering, she's suffering a little bit of PTSD, but her trauma is basically the loss of her fiance, and that's her trauma. But and Elvis is also suffering. I believe this dog that she got from her fiance Martinez. I think Elvis is also suffering the loss of Martinez, but also probably other things. And as dogs cannot tell us what they're going through, she has to kind of decipher that. So her training, she doesn't necessarily want to really bond with this dog, does she? Initially.
They've both. She's lost her man. Mm-hmm. He's lost his man because these are one man dogs, basically. These handling dogs, these bomb sniffing dogs, and they both lost their mission. So it's kind of a double whammy. They have the trauma of war, plus they've lost their man, their one person in life, and they've lost their mission. So they're both at lost ends, and they're both grieving. Right. In very different ways. And at the end of the book, because what they have to go through doesn't necessarily cure Mercy, but she finds herself kind of having moved a little further through the grieving process. She doesn't want to let go of Martinez, but this interest in Troy and this mission that she's now on in this book of finding the whodunit and why they did it, and maybe there's more than one whodunit, and of course there's a very thrilling ending, and that kind of pushes her through the grieving process a little bit. But as she says, she doesn't want to let go, but she finds herself letting go and finding this possible new romance in Troy. And I believe there's going to be more of these. This is the first. Yes,
yes. Good, because the adventures of Mercy Carr must continue. Mercy and Elvis and Troy and
yes.
and Susie Bear. But with Elvis, it's a little different. He goes on this kind of whodunit mission, and then he's fine. As I believe someone says, I think it's Thrasher, the police captain, says whatever was wrong with this dog, he's fine now. Because and Mercy realizes that this dog needs work and fun. So it's not just hiking in the woods. These are dogs, and Gray, I think you can also speak to this. These are dogs that need to work consistently. If they don't, wouldn't you say that's also a stressor? That's also trauma if they don't work and they're at loose ends.
Yeah, I think animals like this that have been trained with a singular purpose, when that suddenly changes, that they're missing something that they've spent their whole life doing. We see this with other types of animals, excuse me, this morning, where a lot of times people ask us, well, do you retire this animal from those programs? And my answer typically is no. We may cut back on the schedule a little bit, but those tasks, those behaviors, those things that they've learned to do and quote unquote enjoy their whole lives, it would be, I think, wrong for us to take some of that away from them just because they're getting older or their lives have changed.
Right. Dogs need to work, especially working dogs that have been trained. So let's talk about some of the things that because you use the term alert, and it's instantaneous what you mean, but it's a very, very specific term. And Susie Bear is not trained really to alert to a lot of things, but Elvis is. And Elvis is a bomb sniffing dog. But you have him alerting. I'm fascinated as to I still don't know what he alerted to on the parade float. That's just me. I don't know yet. And maybe you can tell us or not. But you have him alerting to detonation cord. Right. Well, because now I would understand. I would think it would be obvious if there are chemicals that he can smell, chemicals that go into making a bomb. But detonation cord, I wouldn't think that would have any particular scent, and yet he alerts. He alerts to it when they find it in the woods.
Yes, well, bomb sniffing dogs can alert to like 21 different substances because so many things go into the various kinds of explosive, whether it's a det cord or the IED, whatever it happens to be. And I did a lot of research and talked to a lot of people, an explosive expert with the TSA. One of my own clients is an agent. I have a client who was a game warden for many years, and he trained the first dogs, among the first dogs in New England to search for bombs and search for drugs and search for people. I mean, there are all kinds of things. And it's interesting because now they say that some dogs, if they're doing scent up, air scent dogs, which I talk a lot about in the new book, Blind Search, which is out in the fall. It's a new Mercy Carr book.
Yay.
They're looking for something out of place. It could be the scent of fear in a human fear in a lost person in the woods. It could be the scent of, the det cord, but certainly those kinds of chemical searches, really, they have to be well trained to recognize all of them. But then there's the scent of cadavers. There's the scent of anything out of place.
That's fascinating. That is fascinating. I did not. Gray, did you know that? I did not know that it was just something out of place. I thought it was specific chemicals. That it was only specific chemicals that these dogs were trained to hunt for. But out of place, fear, fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, dogs have thousands of more neurons dedicated to their sense of smell than humans have. So, we're used to experiencing the world through our eyes and maybe our hearing. Dogs experience the world through their sense of smell, some breeds in particular. And so for us to try to imagine what their life is like, I think it takes a lot of imagination because they just perceive the world in a very different way than we can imagine.
I had one dog trainer tell me that he had trained a dog who was great at search and rescue, mm-hmm. but he was also great at ham sandwiches, and he could find a ham sandwich anywhere.
Well, Andrea, have you thought about getting a dog yet? Are you kind of zeroing in on that? My Andrea?
Hi. No, hi.
Hi.
No, for me right now, I'm lucky enough that my in-laws live with me, and we have an 11-month-old Choco Lab.
Oh.
He has plenty of dog energy in this house.
Okay, all right, good. Because I'm talking about it, I'm thinking about it. I have 4. And Gray's got 2.
Mm-hmm.
2. And Paula's got 1. So it's like, okay, good. I'm glad you have dog energy because everybody needs it.
Oh yeah.
And if you hadn't, and if you hadn't, I'm going to have to come up here and have you adopt something. It's fascinating. Are you going to go into in the new book that comes out in the fall, which is called again? What's it called?
Blind Search.
Blind Search.
What's interesting about Blind Search is it's actually a training term for the kind of search where they don't have, say, an article of clothing or a particular scent they're searching for. They're just nose up, air scent dogs on a blind search, in effect.
Wow. Have you thought about putting efforts towards, because I think you would be a wonderful ambassador for some of these programs that are trying to get the military working dogs that are being retired and their handlers, their men or women have retired maybe kind of weeks, months, perhaps years before, and getting them back together, because I think that's so important, and it's one of the key themes in this, because Elvis has lost Martinez, but he's got Mercy, who he also knew. So it's again, this is post-traumatic stress disorder. So I think you'd be a wonderful ambassador for a program like that. Do you have any plans to work with that?
I would love to, and certainly that's how I came to write the book, was at this fundraiser I helped out at for Mission Canine Rescue. And what Mission Canine Rescue does is find the defense contractor dog. Often the Army does a fairly good, better than it used to, job of repatriating retiring military dogs with their former handlers. Right. But some of these dogs are not Army dogs. They're defense contractor dogs. And those dogs end up abandoned in shelters. And what Mission Canine Rescue does is find those dogs and repatriate them, usually with a former handler. That's usually how it works.
Can you explain the difference between a defense contractor dog and a military working dog?
Well, an Army dog is literally an Army personnel, that belongs to the Army and is trained by the Army, usually out of Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. But defense contractor dogs are dogs that are trained by civilian organizations that then provide the dogs to the Army, because there's always a shortage of these dogs, especially now in the wake of 9/11. Everybody needs bomb-sniffing dogs.
And these dogs are not taken back by their initial trainers, by the training organizations that took them? They just end up in shelters?
Well, I know that, for example, when we were doing the Mission Canine Rescue fundraiser the first time, there were 12 dogs who had been left by their defense contractor organization in a kennel, abandoned in the kennel. A year, they abandoned the dogs. They never paid the kennel fees. And finally, the kennel owner contacted Mission Canine Rescue and said, look, somebody has to come take these dogs. So he did the right thing. Rather than just send the dogs, to the nearest kill shelter, he called Mission Canine Rescue, and they organized a big fundraiser to raise the dogs to get these 12 dogs out of there and repatriate them. So they can be left abandoned. Astonishing,
and just awful. But now with so many organizations wanting to repatriate the dogs to their original handlers, to the ones that they worked with in the field, I think absolutely right. The spotlight is being shed, and everyone's kind of standing in the spotlight, and they want to try and do the right thing now. At least, right. I mean, questions will be raised if they don't.
Yes, exactly. I mean, they've done some documentaries about even Army dogs who the Army just let anybody adopt them, and then their handlers had been promised those dogs and didn't get the dogs, and some sad stories. But the Army's cleaning up its act now. Good, because listen, the dogs help the humans, as you say in the book. It's like, he saved her and she saved him, and she saved him and he saved her. The dogs really do the rescuing, I find. Exactly. I mean, not to mention the bomb-sniffing dogs save lives on the battlefield every day.
Of course. Of
So.
course, but sometimes, I mean, obviously, we've heard countless stories of soldiers, military personnel, returning home and suffering mightily. And I mean, to the point where some of them are penniless and jobless and homeless and in need of serious mental assistance. And once these dogs are back with them, they spring to life again.
It's amazing what dogs can do. I mean, in the new book, Blind Search, it was inspired by a true story of a child with autism who got lost in the woods of Vermont, and a search and rescue effort was put on, conducted, and happily ended. They found the boy. And I thought, of course, as a novelist, what if a child with autism was lost in the Vermont woods and witnessed a murder?
There's a lot of murder there's a lot of murder happening in the Vermont woods. I wanted to go to Vermont, and now I'm not so sure.
Yeah. But, that's what dogs can do. I found out all about these dogs who help children with autism. There are dogs who help children with diabetes, and dogs who can detect epileptic seizures, and dogs who can help people suffering from PTSD or anxiety or depression. I mean, dogs, in my new book, Happier Every Day, one of the things to make you happy is adopt a dog.
Adopt a dog. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. I have friends who, because the death of a dog, the death of an animal, but the death of a dog, I think specifically for people, can be as traumatizing as the death of a human. It can be as traumatizing as the death of a child. And I say to them, look, dogs simply don't live as long as we do. They just don't. So you will be I'm going to be in for 4 boatloads of massive suffering when my dogs pass. Gray just went through something like that. You know, Gray lost an animal fairly recently, but it's like they don't live as long as we do. But there's a wonderful sort of theory that when they pass, they're simply making room in your heart and your home for another dog. Adopt another dog. Because, you know, the statistic is, and Gray will back me up on this, at any given time, more dogs and cats, but basically more dogs in the United States than there are people on the planet. 10 billion. 10 billion. And we've got, that's why, and again, off on a different tangent, but, you know, spay and neuter, which is what I love about Patience, who is Mercy's grandmother. And basically, when this goes to film, I think this is I'm a little too young, but it's the role I want. That's on you. Okay, Paula? Patience is this wonderful, wonderful woman. Everything kind of skips a generation because we also meet Mercy's mother, who you just really don't want to you don't want to have a cup of coffee with, period. But Mercy and Patience, her grandmother, are like 2 peas in a pod, and she's fabulous. And she's all about spay. You touch on everything in this book: positive reinforcement training, treating your dogs just like they're angels. The importance of dogs and the importance of spaying and neutering, because there's this cat, there are all these abandoned cats, and they talk about Patience has no patience with somebody who doesn't spay and neuter. So you talk about that too. There's something for everyone in this book. It's really, really wonderful. Are you going to get in? First, I have to ask this. What's going to happen with Troy and Mercy?
Well, they're going to have, a relationship sooner or later.
They have to. It's like it's like watching Sam and Diane.
Exactly. So they will come together, pull apart, come together, pull apart. In the next book, they get a little closer, and things go right and things go wrong, with any relationship. Mercy's still mourning Martinez.
Okay, she's got to get over that. She's just got to get over that because she's not going to bring him back, and Troy's right there.
Yeah, Troy is right there, and he's a good guy with a great dog. So, but he has baggage of his own, and that will come to light.
Yes. Is she going to return? Is the wife going to return? Never mind. Don't tell me. Okay. I mean, I should say the ex-wife, the horrible, horrible, horrible ex-wife. We should have led off with this, but we didn't because we just got right into the book. But Andrea has what I think is just the perfect lead-off question. But now we're gonna go back a few steps. So Andrea's got the question that we always want to know about. We always want to know the answer to. Andrea. Has Andrea left? Is she still there? Andrea?
I'm here, but my internet connection keeps freezing. So I was like, I wonder if she's about to ask me that question because
yes.
I'm freezing.
Okay, get it out quickly.
Yes, before I freeze again, Paula, obviously we see the love there with your babies, but looking back over your life, what was the very first animal that you really had this connection with that led you down the path you're on right now?
My dad always had lots of dogs. He had Vizslas and Weimaraners and German Pointers, hunting dogs. But I got my first dog when I was 10 years old for my 10th birthday. Remains one of my best presents ever. We were living in Germany. My dad was stationed in Germany, and I got a miniature poodle pup. Now, they are the smartest dogs around, poodles, and that dog could do anything. He remains the smartest dog we've probably ever had. And right across the hallway, we were living in these army quarters, was a family, a German family, and they had 3 poodles, and those poodles could do anything, and they taught Rogue to do anything. And because I grew up with Rogue, and then I had, always had dogs, my dad always had dogs, all kinds of dogs, we knew how smart dogs were and what dogs could do. And then when I moved to New England and it was time to get a dog, here in New England, we're very good about spaying and neutering our dogs. So most of our dogs, when we want to rescue dogs, they usually come from the South. So we have Bear, and I rescued a dog named Shakespeare. That was actually in Las Vegas, where there's, it's a very transient community, and people will move to Las Vegas, and they'll bring their dogs, and they'll buy a house, and then they'll find themselves in a gambling culture, find out that they have a problem because they never knew before, because they were never in a culture where, there's slot machines at the 7-Eleven, and they lose everything, and then they abandon their dogs. And at the time I was working for Las Vegas Weekly, which is an alternative news paper, still there in Las Vegas, and our company sponsored an adopt-a dog, because there's so many dogs who were just abandoned by people who'd lost everything and walked away. And I found this dog, and my mother kept telling me, you don't need a dog, you don't need a dog. And there was this darling dog, some kind of Portuguese water poodle mix, some kind of adorable shaggy dog, that they said, look, tomorrow's his last day. If nobody adopts him today, well, I took that dog home and named him Shakespeare. And he was one of the loveliest dogs, my first rescue, loveliest dogs I'd ever had. And he finally died. We don't even know how old he was. He was at least 16, maybe 17. Beautiful dog. And that got me into rescues. And so between Rogue and Shakespeare, then I became a rescue person. We rescued several cats, and we rescued Bear. And then we just rescued a new one named Bliss right before Thanksgiving. And she's a Great Pyrenees Australian cattle dog mix. Very smart, definitely needs training, definitely needs work to do.
I have 2 questions. One is about the state of sort of rescue and rehabilitation in Vermont, and I love the fact that in Vermont you spay and neuter. But my first question is, how did you discover that the South, which I love so much, I love the South, but not this. Mm-hmm. How did you discover that the South? It's really the greatest. Some of the greatest rescues come from the South. Some of the most abused animals are in the South. And how did you discover the rescue organization that you work with, from which you obtained Susie Bear? How did this knowledge come to you?
Well, Bear we rescued through an organization called Double Rescue out of Connecticut. It's a fabulous organization, and she was a local person. I was living on the South Shore of Massachusetts, and one of the 2 sisters run it, and one of the sisters lived in Connecticut, and one of the sisters lived in Massachusetts, and I found her, and she found us this lovely dog, Bear. And then when we moved up here, a little farther north, we decided we wanted another dog, another rescue, because we have 19 acres, so we have, I may have way too many rescues before it's all over, but I thought we have to get another one. And there's a lovely organization called White River Rescue in Vermont, and they found us Bliss. So there are rescue organizations all over New England who specialize in going down to the South and to Puerto Rico and finding dogs and flying them home. Or we went out to White River Junction, Vermont, and we stayed in the rain with a whole slew of people waiting for those dogs that they'd adopted sight unseen to come off that truck. And I tell you, it really made you feel good to be human. You don't always feel good to be human, but I felt good that day because we were all waiting in the rain for these dogs we had only seen on paper, and we were taking them home and making them ours. So.
That's just heaven. You also have a wonderful line in the book about Shakespeare, because I'm assuming you love Shakespeare as much as Mercy Carr does and as much as I do. But that why she, at a young age, why Mercy was so into Shakespeare. I mean, at a very, very young age. And she said, just reading it makes you feel good about being human when you look around and there's so much not to feel good about. shall we
well,
say.
I think that's the joy of reading, and certainly the joy of Shakespeare.
Certainly.
You do feel better about being human.
Yes. Not necessarily Titus Andronicus, but but maybe not that. But some of the comedies are they're just heaven. One of my favorite T-shirts has a line from As You Like It: "Sell when you can. You are not for all markets." It's just I think that's my favorite. My favorite line in Shakespeare. Let's talk about, because I know that in Southern California, Hollywood especially, Los Angeles is claiming that it's a no-kill city, that all of its shelters are no-kill, and we are a little dubious about that. We think that perhaps they are simply shipping their dogs to kill shelters. But there's a lot of speculation. I have no fact about that personally. But it's a giant cause célèbre in Hollywood, and I'm thrilled that it is. Hollywood, again, is full of batshit crazy people. I like to think I'm not included in that, but who back the wrong causes due to pressure from activist groups, et cetera, et cetera. But the whole idea of adopting, sponsoring, spaying and neutering has really kind of taken root here. The idea of no kill here, adopting here, adopt, don't shop. So, but let's talk about New England. Now, you've just said that there are these rescue organizations all over New England. So I'm assuming that it's permeating that area of the country as well.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they have dog breeders, whatever, but most people rescue their dogs, and there are all kinds of rescue organizations where you can go and find the dog you want or the cat you want. Cats, you can usually go to a local shelter and get a cat, and sometimes you can go to a local shelter and get a pit bull. But other than pit bulls and cats, all other dogs, mostly, unless you go to a breeder, which is not going to happen, you go to a rescue organization, and they find, like, Bliss is from Texas and Bear is from Alabama, and the cat is from
we have a lot of mutts, a lot of Heinz 57 varieties here in Los Angeles. So you can go to a rescue. And by the way, this is for my audience who basically already know this already. Adopt, don't shop. And yes, you can go to because I still have friends who say, well, I really want this specific breed, so I'm going to have to go to a breeder, and then I smack them across the head with a frying pan. And I say, no, there is a rescue for everything. There's a rescue for everything. But here in our shelters, you can find a lot of everything.
Well, my son actually has a rescue from an LA shelter named Terry, a little terrier, some kind of mix that he got when he was out in LA. He's a comedian, so he was out there, and he rescued a dog there, and now he's back in New York. But there are plenty of dogs to be rescued in LA. In
Los Angeles, absolutely. And you can basically get anything you want. Cats as well. This has been just thank you so much for coming on the show. I cannot wait to read Blind Search. In fact, I want the galleys. I want you to send me the galleys. Or I can be a proofreader. I can be someone who will then get acknowledged at the back of the book. Yay! Because I'm very now into Mercy and Troy, and Elvis, this beautiful Elvis, and when I won't give it away, but something happens to Elvis in like the middle of the book, and it's like and of course Patience, the patient veterinarian, Mercy's grandmother, has to tend to him. Oh, it's crazy, but it's wonderful, and you have painted such a beautiful picture, not only of the interiors of all of these homes and specific sites, but the exterior, the beauty that is Vermont. Last words from anyone?
I'll send you that galley.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Do you ever get out to Los Angeles?
I do. So
well, please stay in touch and look us up and come back on the show when Blind Search is published in the fall. Wonderful conversation today about working dogs, the importance of working dogs, military dogs, the homes that they need when they have been retired, the fact that they should never be retired mentally or physically, and how we need to continue to support those efforts of repatriating these dogs with their military men and women. So thank you so much. And it's just told in such a wonderful, wonderful story, wonderful tale. So buy this book. You know what? Wait a second. Before I let you go, A Borrowing of Bones. Is that a Shakespeare quote?
It's a line from a Pablo Neruda poem.
Okay.
Called October Fullness. Life is only a borrowing of bones.
I think you actually have. Did you have that in here? You do. You do have it. It's toward the beginning of the book, so I've naturally forgotten it because I'm just all about the ending. It's wonderful. Okay, all right. Thank you. Got it. It's a thriller not to be missed, and I hope it's made into a movie. Last words from anyone?
I just have a quick question regarding your getting started as a writer. What's a fast tip that you can give to all the potential writers out there?
Like Gray.
The writers who get published are the writers who finish and revise.
This is very true. It's very true.
All right.
Yeah. Yes, it's true. I know this. I can speak to this. Andrea, last words and thoughts?
Just thank you for sharing your words with us, Paula, and giving us great stories to enjoy.
Yeah. It's wonderful. It's really, really wonderful.
It's been lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we will see you again when Blind Search is published, or even before, if you want to come on and give us a few hints and tips and things like that. And the further adventures of Elvis and Susie Bear, who are really, as far as I'm concerned, the heroes of this story, especially in that last chapter with the water. That's all I'm going to say, with the water. Okay. Yes. So thank you once again for coming on. We will talk to you again very, very soon. Everybody, buy A Borrowing of Bones. Paula Munier, thank you again. Andrea, as usual, I can't do anything without you.
Oh, you are the best. Come on.
You got to come back down and live here. The handsomest man in radio, Tony Sweet. You should just put your picture up and let people see how handsome you are. Yes, I know. And my Alpha and Omega, Gray Stafford, bless you, my friend. And we have to talk about that panel in New Orleans. What is that? What am I going to do? What is it? Where's Gray?
You're next to mine, okay?
Wait, what? Say that again.
I said just as long as you don't put up Tony's picture next to mine.
And make them choose and see which one's which, because it will be a hard decision.
There's no choice.
So we have to talk about that panel in New Orleans, because I'm there. I'm in my head. I'm already there, and probably will come home with an adopted dog. All right, everyone, thank you so much for being here. What an amazing story. Again, you know what? You can find tales of animal rescue, positive reinforcement training, the way that animals touch our lives if we are simply open to it and don't turn away. Because you should never turn away from an animal of any stripe, but certainly you should never turn away from a dog, especially a dog that needs you. And you will know, if you are open to it, whether or not an animal needs you, and they always do. So wonderful, wonderful tales. You can find these stories anywhere you look, and I hope you do. Again, adopt, don't shop. Thank you, everyone, for being with me and everyone else on this episode of Animal Magnetism. Always remember, cultivate the preservationist heart. It will take you a long, long, long way. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Carolyn Hennessy signing off. Thank you for listening to Animal Magnetism. Bye-bye.